So, listen, I'm not gonna pretend like I solved Midnight Motorist, or that I have the best answer or theory or anything like that. I understand why people think Midnight Motorist is about the Aftons. I get it. But me, personally, ever since FNaF 6 released back in 2017, I was never 100% on board with the fact that this orange guy is the purple guy. Or really the fact that this house in the middle of the woods is supposed to be the same house that is right next to Fredbear's and a kids play area and whatnot, which is the same layout we see in Sister Location's Break a Room map. I was never on board with the fact that this crybaby 5-year-old would just break a window and disobey his father and run back to the restaurant. Or the fact that a shadow entity would show a kid a dead body because it looked cool. Or the fact that Mike, the older dickhead brother, would care for a crying child for just that one minigame and then bully him for 5 days straight before his brother's birthday. Or the fact that the layout of the home itself is not the same as in the 4th game, despite the fact that minigames are quite accurate in the layout department. But look, this video isn't an Afton Midnight Motorist debunk or anything like that. This video is just me presenting to you guys an alternate theory that has, in my opinion, as much, if not more, evidence than Afton Midnight Motorist. This theory is commonly called MCIMM Midnight Motorist, which is the theory that Midnight Motorist is about one of the missing children's incident victims being lured by Afton to Freddy's and getting killed. I don't really see this theory being talked much in the YouTube space, even though it's a pretty solid theory. So, after watching this video, I hope all of you can understand why I think this theory is very likely. So, let me run you through the basics of MCIMM Midnight Motorist. Orange Guy is a victim's father, coming back home from somewhere later that night. He was clearly kicked out of juniors for possibly drinking too much. The mother tells the father to leave their child, who is notably a boy, and that he had a rough day. But the father doesn't leave him alone. He sees that the kid's door is locked. He goes out back and sees the window broken, and the father concludes that the kid went back to Freddy's. But what really happened is that William, wearing his Spring Bonnie suit, lures the kid back to Freddy's. So we have deduced the fact that the MCI kid that was lured was a male, which removes Cassidy from the equation, leaving Jeremy, Gabriel, and Fritz. The identity of the kid will be obvious later on. So what exactly supports this theory? Well, let's start in FNaF 6 itself. If you playtest Fruity Maze, Security Puppet, and Midnight Motorist and get their secret minigame, we get the Lorekeeper certificate, which gives us this screen at the end of the credits, which shows the original 6 kids finally resting in peace. But what struck me is that both Security Puppet and Fruity Maze tells us the story of 2 of Afton's victims, Susie and Charlotte, who both appear in the grave ending. So considering these 2 appear in the ending, then I would think Midnight Motorist would certainly do the same. I mean, you play this minigame to get this screen, so there has to be a connection to the kids. And you have the fact that the Midnight Motorist arcade is literally a reskin of Fruity Maze, a minigame about an MCI victim. And overall, this game puts a heavy focus on the missing children. Now on to Ultimate Custom Night. In Chica's high school years, you have Toy Chica luring her victims and killing them. One of the cutscenes has Chica lure Wolf by using his dog.
I told him that someone ran over his dog in front of my house,
which is the same tactic Afton uses on Susie. Not 100% the same, but it's too suspiciously close. So these cutscenes are showing us how each MCI victim was lured. One kid with homework, Susie with her dog, another being told that Spring Bonnie's house is on fire, another kid being told that Spring Bonnie has taken live hostages, and Spring Bonnie trying to casually lure a kid. If that doesn't work, he'll go to his house.
I told him to come over later. That should be enough. And if he doesn't show up, I'll just go to his house. And if he doesn't open the door, I'll just find a window. Chimney's always an option. Or I could set the house on fire and wait for him to run out.
So, okay, we have Chica trying to lure someone. If that doesn't work, she will go to his house and threaten him to come out. This is very similar to Midnight Motorist, because you have the fact that someone was taken from their home and from a window. I mean, you can't really deny the similarities here. If that's the case, what would be the full context of Midnight Motorist if we apply the Toy Chica cutscenes? You have Afton wanting to casually lure a kid. That doesn't work, so he goes to the kid's house, breaks his window, and probably threatens the kid to burn the house down if he didn't come with him. But why would Afton be so aggressive at this point? Well, it's actually not uncommon that Afton gets more aggressive after each kill. We can clearly see in the Toy Chica cutscenes that Chica is getting more and more aggressive with each victim she lures. Even the last 7th victim is just kidnapped with no rhyme or reason. Chica doesn't even think the pig is attractive like the others, but wants to kill him anyways. Believe it or not, this behavior is actually seen in the FNaF movie with Afton. After the yellow rabbit lures the first 3 kids, you can see he gets red eyes and his expression changes into being more angry. He is getting more brutal and aggressive for the last remaining kids, which would explain the aggressiveness behind the Midnight Motorist victim. Now let's move to Help Wanted. More specifically, Pizza Party, where we play as Gabriel and get lured by Glitchtrap, who then suddenly stuffs us into Freddy Fazbear. So how does Pizza Party tell us anything about Midnight Motorist? Well, look where we start in Pizza Party. A child's room. We start in a child's room and end up in the pizzeria, where Spring Bonnie kills us and stuffs us into Freddy. And it's not just that. There's also a key detail that also ties Pizza Party back to Midnight Motorist. Take a listen. You hear that? It's raining, just like Midnight Motorist. Scott has always tried to clarify things in the next installment. Maybe the many references to Midnight Motorist in the future games signify that we weren't quite right with Afton Midnight Motorist, which still is the most popular Midnight Motorist theory. And I'm gonna mention this now, but in Curse of Dreadbear, we see Spring Bonnie dancing in front of a home in the middle of the woods. It's not really strong evidence, but I thought I'd mention it. But we aren't done just yet. We also have the story You're the Band from Fazbear Frights number 12. And before you say it, I know the story was scrapped and isn't a part of the rest of the Frights. But in the description of the book, it still says it's canon to the FNaF universe. So if the story ain't in the Frights or games timeline, then it's on its own timeline. So I can still use it as evidence. Now, I'm not gonna recap the whole story, it'll make the video too long, but I will briefly tell you the important bits. If you want an actual summary, there will be a link to the wiki in the description. So basically, Timmy is a soon-to-be 8-year-old kid that is obsessed with Freddy Fazbear. In his birthday party, he puts on a Freddy Fazbear head his mother, Sylvia, bought online. What Sylvia doesn't know is that the Freddy head is the actual Freddy Fazbear head that is possessed by Gabriel, and when Timmy puts it on, Gabriel possesses the little boy, taking control over his body. And that's the backstory you need. Now let's get to the evidence. In the story, Timmy turned 8 years old when he put on that Freddy head, and Gabriel possessed him. And the possessed Timmy later remarks that he's now 8 years old, not Timmy. So why is this important? Well, in Pizza Party, we see that Gabriel has a birthday cake. There's 7 candles in the cake, which could mean Gabriel turned 7 when he died. So this means when Gabriel died, he was 7, and the next birthday he would technically have as a real boy would make him turn 8 years old. Next, Gabriel would sometimes throw huge tantrums if he didn't get what he wants. That could tie in with Midnight Motorist, since the mother does seem tired and maybe even defeated, just wanting the father to leave the boy alone for the night. And Gabriel being defiant could tie in with the fact that he always locks his door and sneaks out. Next, Gabriel is taken by the puppet from his room and into the woods, until they both reach Freddy's, and when Sylvia gets inside Freddy's, she sees that Timmy is on the stage where Freddy would normally be located. This again parallels what happens in Midnight Motorist and also Pizza Party, where Gabriel would be taken by someone into the woods and to Freddy's, where he would end up on the stage taking Freddy's place. There's also the fact that Sylvia and Timmy/Gabriel were staying at Sylvia's parents' home in the countryside, the exact same place where Midnight Motorist would be. And something I noticed when making this video is that it's weird that these three characters from FNaF 6 would get their own dedicated story. Charlie with the novels, Susie with Coming Home, and if I'm right, Gabriel with You're the Band. I really hope you guys can see what I mean when I say MCI Midnight Motorist, or more specifically, Gabriel Midnight Motorist, has the same amount of evidence as Afton Midnight Motorist, maybe even more, because literally every new project that comes out, if it references Midnight Motorist, it has something to do with an MCI victim, specifically Gabriel. That's why I'm convinced of this theory more than Afton Midnight Motorist. There are too many connections and similarities with other games and books that I simply can't ignore. But of course, with every theory, there are gonna be problems or unanswered questions, which I'm here to answer. First off, assuming Gabriel Midnight Motorist is correct, what is the mound? Well, considering that the mound is right next to a road, I would wager it's Susie's dog. I mean, that would make sense. When someone hit the dog, someone would have buried it at the side of the road. And this would connect Midnight Motorist and Fruity Maze together much more, since, again, they are the same looking arcade. Maybe Yellow Guy was the guy that hit the dog. Alright, what about the rain? We know spring suits get very faulty when they get wet, so how would Afton lure Gabriel if it was raining? Well, I have three explanations for this. Either A, it's an oversight, B, Afton wore a non-springlock suit, or C, it started raining after the kid was lured. I don't think the rain argument is really that strong because it's doubled down in Pizza Party with the rain sound effect playing throughout the minigame, so it's not really a big problem. The rain could have just started later on. Another thing people argue about this theory is that why would Gabriel be considered an MCI kid if he was lured from his home? How would the cops know he was lured to Freddy's? Again, this can be easily explained. We know two of the kids were caught on camera. One of them could be Gabriel, or another explanation is that Orange Guy knows where Gabriel went. Or maybe the cops saw the cartoony footprints and deduced the kid went there, with the information from Orange Guy. You gotta remember, only 2 kids were immediately reported after June 26th, and the rest of the 5 would be discovered later on by the police. So it's not a huge stretch to think the cops learned about Gabriel's kidnapping later on and linked him with the incident to Freddy's. I saw some people argue the fact that William wouldn't be stupid enough to lure the kid from his own home when there are a lot of kids at the pizzeria he could have chosen. Here's the thing. Afton seems to be the type of serial killer that chooses his victims very carefully, which can't be seen in the Toy Chica cutscenes. And when he wants to kill someone, he will do whatever it takes. Next thing people say is the fact that Spring Bonnie can't be the one doing the footprints because the one who made them teleported. Reason being, there aren't any more cartoony footprints, which I really don't get. There's literally a bush right behind the footprints. We can't see the rest of the footprints because it's covered. I don't really understand this argument, to be honest. And lastly, why would Scott make the setting of the minigame rain, have us drive a purple car, and the minigame itself being called later that night. This obviously points to Afton Midnight Motorist, right? Well, not really. I can understand where people are coming from. But like what I listed at the beginning of the video, there are just too many contradictions with the minigame being about the Aftons. The name later that night isn't only tied with Security Puppet. We play a game called Midnight Motorist. The name later that night could just refer to the night of the arcade game itself, rather than a continuation of a minigame we get later in the game. As for the rain and purple car, in my opinion, it could just be a red herring, because if we play the minigame for the first time, you see the purple car and already assume it's William, but when we step out, we see not a purple guy, but an orange guy. This red herring argument is even alluded to in the Ultimate Guide, which again is weird when you consider the fact that Afton Midnight Motorist was and still is the most popular Midnight Motorist theory. I'm not saying it's impossible for the yellow guy to be William, but after all of what I just said, in my opinion, I think it's unlikely Scott would change the most iconic thing about the purple man. But that's just me. So now, let's just quickly recap Gabriel Midnight Motorist. On the night of June 26th, Afton lured and killed 4 kids already. He needed the 5th, so he tries to lure the birthday boy Gabriel, but it doesn't work. Gabriel goes home with his mother. Afton, not wanting his victim to escape, goes to Gabriel's home. He throws a rock at the kid's window and threatens to burn the house down if he didn't come with him. Gabriel climbs out of the window and goes with Spring Bonnie. Later that night, Gabriel's father arrives home, drunk as hell. He gets furious with Gabriel for locking the door again, so he goes out back and sees that Gabriel left and went to Freddy's. At Freddy's, Afton kills Gabriel and stuffs him in the main mascot, Freddy Fazbear. So, what do you think of this theory? I would like to hear them in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, all that jazz, and I'll see you next time. See you on the flip side.